Poornalingam, so before I go to you, I have a point of information to make. As a moderator, I know I should feel moderated in my speech, but I just wanted to touch upon something interesting from what Mr. P.V. Ramesh sir said. So he was very right in saying that the training for civil service officer has to be different. In fact, I've studied at Ecolib Sciences Politics Affairs Public there. So Ecolib Sciences Politics is otherwise also called a Sciences, which trains the French civil servants. So they either go to ENAB after Sciences Po, or I just straight join the French civil service. So I know the curriculum has evolved over the years. Like every year we have new courses, and it's up to date. So if you look, there's a paradigm shift in public policy as well as policy implementation strategies. But though our system is borrowed from the British, it worked really well. But I think it has not changed, or it has not adapted as quickly as it should have been. As an anecdote, I was recently speaking to a very recently appointed IAS officer, probably after 2012. And then I was telling, why don't you use nudging technologies and behavioral economics technologies to improve people's behavior in cities? He was heading a corporation. But to my surprise, he did not even know what nudging is, or the developments in behavioral economics, or the behavioral insights unit that are set up across the world. So I think you may select the best of the best, but I think it all relies on the training, and you can't have the same training methodologies that were used in the 70s and 80s. For example, Margaret Thatcher did a great job in the 80s by transforming the bureaucracy, and also they have this new term NPM, new policy management methodologies. I think P.V. Ramesh was absolutely right when he said we need to transform and learn to adapt. So with this, I invite Poornalingam sir to speak.
Friends, thank you very much. I heard all the speakers, they covered all the points. Let me confine myself to the topic of discussion, named the amendment to the rules. To start talking about the IAS, there are so many things. Let me not go into that area. I am very clear that this rule amendment is very harmful. Am I audible? Is there a problem?
Can hear you perfectly, please.
Okay. This proposed amendment to the rules is very harmful to the administration as a whole, and also to the federal setup. There is no doubt about it. And I only wish and pray that somehow these rules are not carried through. The reason is very simple. Briefly, I have spent about 10 years in the center at the lower level and at the higher level, namely at the director and joint secretary 5 years, and additional secretary and secretary 5 years. Rest of the time I spent in the state. And I have seen all the desk posts in the state. I have Secretary Home, Secretary Health, Secretary Industries, you name what not, Chairman EB, every post I have seen. And I liked, to be very frank with you, like working in the state because it's very challenging. It's very, very challenging to work in the state, and the challenges in the central government are very much less. So if it is file pushing, note writing, policy making at that level, implementation is left to either the states or to somebody else in the central government. Therefore, in Tamil Nadu and other states, southern states, people are very happy in the state itself. The children's schooling is very good throughout the state, whether it is Andhra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. And therefore, there is very little motivation for them to go to Delhi. First of all, it's not challenging. Second, the state jobs are challenging. That's one reason why the Tamil Nadu's quota in the central government is always underfilled. And I wanted to go to Delhi to explore what it is. That's all. I got a good ministry, commerce ministry. I enjoyed working there. I learned new skills, etc., etc. That's a different point. Then after my retirement, I had gone through the entire India, various states, including West Bengal, Orissa, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, as a consultant for the World Bank. So I have seen enough of the surveys, enough of the conditions, and when such a thing is done, certainly it will affect the administration. Because when we work in the state government, we are answerable only to the chief minister, or not even to the minister, because the postings are normally done by the chief minister. And I have in Tamil Nadu argued with the minister and opposed their proposals. Nothing has happened to me. And because the minister knows that he has to go to the chief minister to get me thrown out. And therefore, this answering to one person is very important. With these amendments of the rules, the serving officer will have to answer to two persons. One is PM and another is the chief minister. That will affect administration. And also it will affect independence. When we work in the state government, we take care of state interests. Many times, what is good for Bihar may not be good for Tamil Nadu. I gone and argued in the Government of India meeting saying that no, we don't want it. We don't want it this way. We can boldly say that. But with these rules, I doubt very much whether I can carry that kind of independence in the meetings with the interactions with the central government. Similarly, when we work in the central government, we are answerable to the Prime Minister. There is no question about divided loyalty. Whatever the Government of India decides, we will obey. Whether it is in the interest of, we will try to protect the interest of the state, but ultimately country provides. So this is the kind of balance we have. Now, my suspicion, this amendment to the rules has been brought out only because of the Chief Secretary. The Government of India suddenly found out they do not have the powers. It was elementary. They don't have the powers. Only with the consent of the state government, they can take an officer. Sometimes, most of the times, the consent of the officer is also important, because what's the point in posting an unwilling officer there? If the Prime Minister wants a good officer, he can take the phone and ring up the chief minister, and he can always get that officer from the central government. Not even the Prime Minister, the Cabinet Secretary rings up the Chief Secretary. He will go to the Chief Minister and say, the PM wants him. There are many such cases happened in our state. So it is not a question of nobody not denying the central government talented officers. But if the state's interests are more important, the Chief Minister will certainly say, I need him for the state. Therefore, this amendment is certainly because of, in my view, it is because of this problem with the West Bengal Chief Secretary, and that is, the intention itself is not good. The intention is not good, the results will be much worse. Therefore, they should, why the BJP states have not opposed it? Obviously, because BJP states will not have a problem of this nature. They will ring up, BJP states will not have any confrontation. Whatever they want, they will get, and therefore there is no issue at all with the BJP states, and that's why they have not. If this allowed to go, what may happen is that the Chief Minister will lose his powers, will lose his control over the All India Service. And in due course, the states may say, we don't want All India Service at all. Why not? You see, after all, if you are answerable to the Prime Minister all the time, how can a person implement things in the state government? The Chief Minister will be powerless. The man will be looking towards the central government all the time. And this is a very dangerous thing. Now, the reason cited in the Government of India circular is that there is a shortage of officers in the central government. I'm also a little surprised why there is a shortage. Because I remember my days when for one post of Joint Secretary, 4 fellows will be competing. It's very difficult to get a Joint Secretary job there. I myself suffered. I had to wait for 3-4 months to get a job of a Joint Secretary in the central government when I was working there. But now I am told the Joint Secretaries are not having any independence. There is no motivation. There is no initiative. They cannot take initiative. Orders come from one place and they have to only obey the orders. This kind of work IAS officers would not like to do. They would, even those people like me who would like to go to the center will decide to be the state if this is the condition. And one more thing is also important. In my days, when I was Joint Secretary, Additional Secretary, and Secretary, the Joint Secretary's tenure, we used to call him as a pillar of the ministry. Joint Secretary's tenure used to be fixed. He will not be transferred from one post to another post. I find now, at least I know 2-3 cases. Joint secretaries are just transferred after 2 years. I stayed at that place for 5 years and became an expert on the subject because I stayed in one place for 5 years. That's the advantage of the central government. State government, I stayed maximum 3 years in one job. 2 years is reasonable. So this kind of advantages is lost. And it is, in my humble opinion, it has become state government of India, where the posting orders are being issued right and left on the whimsies of few people, and no tenure stability, no decision-making powers to the officers who are working. You should understand that IAS officers are not clerks. They have got the good brain and they want to take decisions. They want to get involved in policy making, and their views should be heard. And it should not be just ignored. Their views cannot be dictated from above. So these conditions are creating the problem. That should be the reason. Actually, in one of the debates which I participated, I suggested the government of India should examine why their posts are not getting filled, find out the reasons, and take solutions for the problems the situation is facing, rather than asking officers to come under certain rules. This is my humble view. I only hope that the government of India will see reason and not press ahead with these amendments. Of course, there is no force like the agriculturists in repealing of the farm laws. There is no force here. Our intellectual debate and intellectual reasoning, whether it will make a difference, only Mr. Sarkar will be able to say, because he is in the parliament, and maybe he will be making a very vocal case against these amendments. And this will be the beginning of the end of the civil service if these rules go through. Thank you very much.
So thank you for your very insightful speech and also for your time.